Hi, I'm Susan Latai, and I am here with Patrice McKinley today, co-author of a new book to be released soon called Shining a Light on Grief. Welcome, Patrice.
Hi, Susan. How you doing? Good to
I'm
see
good. So glad to have
you.
you here.
Thank you.
So we'll just jump right into the questions. Can you give our audience a brief description of your chapter titled A Caregiver's Story?
Yeah, sure. So I kind of go into this at the beginning, but of my story and explain it all. But uh, it's really about my husband passed away. It'll be 12 years this coming July.
Okay.
And he was sick for quite a while, and almost 10 years. And the first 6 were pretty okay. He had prostate cancer, and he was doing okay. There were ups and downs. There were, it was I was anxious. We were all anxious, but the last 3 years of his life were incredibly difficult. And I was his sole caregiver, and it was traumatic. So in my story, I talk about what it's like to be a caregiver. And I really wanted to share my story so that other people who are in that position would have an understanding or help them feel like they weren't alone. That was my intention, just to, because I couldn't find anything as far as books. I would search out books for something like that because I felt like I was really alone in the process. And I couldn't really find anything. So I just told my story about my journey through it, and just to try to let people know what it was like for me, and maybe give them permission, or I don't even know what to say. Permission is not the right word, but to just understand that you're not alone in this process. It is difficult. It can be very challenging as a caregiver. And I just really wanted to tell a story about that so that people don't feel bad if they're not enjoying that process and not feeling great about themselves 100% of the time. It's a challenge, not only for the person who is sick, but for also the caregiver.
Yeah, it's a very difficult job to have.
Yeah.
And to watch and to anticipate, right? You use
that's
that in
right.
your story.
Yeah.
Anticipation of, your husband dying.
Yeah, that was, I don't know if I'm bleeding into the second question there, but anticipatory grief was a word that I had, or a phrase that I had never, a term that I had never heard before until I became part of this book. And it explained so much of what I was going through at the time. And it was a real eye-opener, and actually a relief to know that there was it was a thing. It wasn't just like the 5 stages of grief after somebody dies. It's the 5 stages of grief while somebody is still alive, but it's probably not going to end well. And I was trying to hold the space for my family, not just my husband, but I had 2 teenage daughters. Well, through the whole cancer journey, was 10 years. So when he passed away, they were 14 and 16. So holding the space for my whole family in, whatever that was, the journey through our lives at that point was really stressful, and I wasn't always happy about it. So this idea of anticipatory grief really helped me not feel guilty about all the feelings I was feeling going through this. And I mean, obviously my husband was the one going through it, and it was really, really hard to watch all of the pain, all of the doctor's visits, all of the feeling hopeful, and then, feeling hopeless and devastated. All of it, just the whole roller coaster of emotions happen to a person and to their families in that period, and so again, my purpose in participating in the book was just to, as the title says, shine a light on grief, but shine a light on what it's like to be a caregiver. I thought was a really important thing to add, that it's not just about afterwards, but it's also in anticipation and what that can do to your family and to everyone involved. I mean, I wrote about this in the chapter, but how I felt when my husband was diagnosed was, the big C is something we all fear,
Right.
And you're always like, feel so bad when somebody, has that diagnosis, and so hopeful, like, okay, maybe it won't be bad for them, and maybe they'll survive. And thank God these days so many people do survive cancer. But I remember when he got the diagnosis, everything changes. The whole everything changes, and I just felt like, and I said, cancer is in our house now. It lives here now, and it was just this energy shift that you can't describe until you're going through it. And you just live with it day to day. And it's tough. It's scary. It's sad. It's, and you try to go on, you try to move forward every day the best you can. Some days are easier than others, and some days are awful, So I just tried to be as honest about it as I could. And like I said, hopefully I've talked to a lot of women about caregiving of their husbands since my husband passed. And I really try to emphasize that it's okay not to be happy about it every day. It's okay to feel like you want to run away and never come back, because that's how I felt on many occasions. And I would search out, like, on the internet. I mean, this is 12 years ago now, but I would search out, like, because I felt terrible and guilty, and how could I feel this way? My husband is in such pain, but I would search it out on the internet, like, any information I could find on caregiving, which there was not at the time. At least I wasn't coming across it. And just the few things I found was like this list of, it was like a questionnaire, the symptoms of caregivers. And if you have more than 5 of these, you need help. It's like, okay, thank you.
Like you needed that to tell you needed help.
Right. It was like, okay, great. But I had a therapist at the time. I had great, great friends, but they weren't, thank God, going through what I was going through. So it can be just a lonely journey. And I just wanted people to know that they're not alone.
Right, which is such a big message out there, because too many times people do feel like they're alone, that there's nobody out there that understands them. So sharing that, I think, is very important, and to be part of this book.
Yeah, and you don't want to show that. I didn't want to show that to my husband. You
Right.
know,
Right.
he had enough going on without me, complaining, or not that I didn't, but I was really, because he was a tough guy, I mean,
Yeah.
he was wanted to be in control. I mean, I think everybody does, but he was a tough patient sometimes.
Yeah.
And you know, I I loved him through it the best I could, and tried to make it as easy for him as I could. And my kids, but so you don't want to show that and complain to the person who's sick,
Right.
because they don't need that,
No.
you know
No.
but so I think it's important to have outlets, definitely.
Yeah. Yeah. And you just do the best you can.
Exactly.
That's
And not feel bad about it.
exactly, that's the hard part, is not
Yeah.
feeling guilty about it, that you're not doing enough,
Yeah.
or that you're having certain emotions, or you're feeling a certain way.
Yeah. Yeah,
That
exactly.
I think guilt is
Exactly.
a big part of that.
Absolutely. Especially, being raised Catholic. There's no
Right,
guilt to go
exactly,
around.
right, right. Think about the other person before you think about yourself.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely. And, and really having outlets as much as possible. I think that that's, another message that I really tried to get across. I try to carve out a life for yourself whenever you can, so that it's
Exactly.
not all about everyone else but you.
Well, you need that in order to be able to function, and to be
Right.
able to, get through it.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And, the more constructive those outlets are, as opposed to destructive, because
Yes.
that's another thing.
Yes.
We can all rely on our addictions to try to get through, and
Right.
it helps if you find some really joyous outlets and
Yes.
things you're passionate about.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hmm.
That's a great message.
Hmm. Yeah.
So lastly today, can you share a little bit about yourself and the work you do in the world, or, how
Yeah.
you're being of service, and taking your experience too, and moving in and helping
Yeah,
others?
definitely. So, um, during my husband's illness, I became a certified life coach, and that's what I'm doing today. So I have a program that's called Expecting Results Coaching, and I work with my clients, um, helping them to understand that they have unlimited potential, and that you can create anything you want. Um, if you really desire it passionately, you can have it. And basically, I work with those concepts, but helping people change their mindset and understand that whatever you're thinking is what you create on a daily basis,
Right.
and that you can, through a method and a process, you can recreate and tell a new story. And it's basically all about the stories we tell ourselves, and changing the beliefs about what's possible for us. So I love doing that. I've done that for myself. I,
Mhm.
coach clients from all walks of life to help them, get successful in any way that they, define success.
Right.
Housewives, kids who are in college, business owners and doctors and lawyers and artists. I'm working with a lot of people in show business right now, because I am a singer as well, a cabaret singer, and I've uh, produced some shows that are inspirational and kind of tell my story.
Mhm.
And so that's another way that I feel like I've integrated my coaching and my love for singing, and really help people to understand, that when you live your passion and you express yourself fully, life can be really amazing. And that's what it's meant to be.
Yeah. Yeah. That's
Mhm.
great. That's great. Well, to learn more about Patrice and to read her chapter, The book will be available soon.